Hey friends, I got my Superman shirt on today, and the reason I've got my Superman shirt on is because we are continuing this series, the superhero series, and we're continuing with part 3. We hear today again the story of David and Goliath. We began it last week and we're going to end with that story here this week. So if you have not done so yet, why don't you pause this video for just a moment and refamiliarize yourself with the story in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 1 through 58. Well, our lesson today is focused on learning from David about facing the giants in our life. These giants are challenges and obstacles that are related to our marriages, our finances, our places of work. Maybe it's in raising our children. We all have these giants that we face, these obstacles that seem overwhelming. But there's much that we can learn from David when we face these overwhelming obstacles. And here are 4 more lessons continued from last week. The first thing is that we need to prepare to miss the mark. In 1 Samuel 17 verse 40, David goes to the brook and he chooses 5 smooth stones, it says. I always find it curious, why did David choose 5 stones? He only needed 1 stone to kill the giant. The easy answer here is he chose 5 stones in case he missed the mark. Everything may not go as planned, but if he has additional stones, he could always reload and fire again. There will come times in life when you face your challenges where you will miss the mark. There will be times when you stumble, and that's okay. We learn from our mistakes. When you miss the mark, it's time to reload and fire again. Success often does not happen. In fact, it never happens without failure. Success happens by learning through our failures. There's ups and downs along the way. A second lesson we can learn today is that details matter. Again, that same verse, 1 Samuel 17 verse 40, David chose smooth stones. Smooth stones fly straighter. Smooth stones fly faster. Smooth stones are more aerodynamic. The details matter. The details are the difference between people who are passionate about what they do and other people who are just doing a job. You want to know someone who is invested in their craft? Well, look at the details, because details matter. In the sports world, victory is often won by the slimmest of margins. And the difference between winning and losing is in the details. It was no different here in this battle. Don't overlook the small stuff. In fact, God, He is in the details. Look at how you were created. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, and God saw to all of the intimate details of your life. A third thing that we learn from David is that David's trust was in God. We read in verses 44 and 45, when the Philistine giant taunted David, David replied by saying, "You come at me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head." The next time you face a giant in your life, don't tell God how big your giant is. Tell your giant how big your God is. God is greater than any challenge we might ever face. So much of what we do in life is determined by our money. You know, it says on our American dollar, "In God we trust." But the truth is, more often than not, it's not in God we trust, but it is in the almighty dollar that we trust. There's a reason that we call it that oftentimes. Maybe it's a ploy to convince ourselves that we put in God we trust on our money, but the choices we make in life are often determined by how much we have or by how little we have. Goliath was no different. He looked at what he had, and then he looked at what David had. And he dismissed, because of what David had, he dismissed any possibility that David might defeat him. But what Goliath failed to realize, that a greater power was at work in David than the sword the giant wielded and the armor that he wore. One final lesson today. David realized that it was the Lord's battle, and this might be the most important of them all. David was not fighting his own battle. He was fighting God's battle. There are so many battles in life which we personalize. We make them to be our own personal crusades. You need to recognize that the battle is not your battle alone, but it is the Lord's battle. If it's not the Lord's battle, then it's probably not a battle that you should be fighting in the first place. At the end of his life, the Apostle Paul said, I have fought the good fight, 2 Timothy 4, verse 7. He can say he fought the good fight because he fought God's battle. And the best thing about fighting God's battle is we already know how it ends. The Bible tells us that God wins. When we fight the Lord's battle, we are empowered to do what needs to be done because we know we cannot lose. It's time. It's time to give your battle over to the Lord. Give up worry and fear and conquer your giant. As David said, the battle is the Lord's. Hey, we'll see you next week as we continue with part 4 of our superhero series.